stuck between a libertarian and a Republican. Welcome to Publitarian Podcast.
Hello everyone, this is Ronald Johnson, Publitarian, coming at you again with another episode of Publitarian Podcast, and we are up to episode number 108, and I'm getting better with releasing these because it's only been a couple of weeks instead of a couple of months. Episode 108, I don't really have a title for it just yet, just going to run through some news of the day stuff. I do have a couple of exciting interview episodes coming up. One is a non-woke author, and that's all I'm going to tease until I actually get him on the show. And another one, I had a couple of doctors that agreed to come on the podcast and talk about fact or fiction, truth about vaccines and therapeutics and everything else, just totally like nonpartisan. You guys let me know what you think. You know, let's listen to these two doctors and see what's up. I've not been able to get our schedules aligned as of yet, but that should also be coming up because, you know, vaccines and COVID and deltas and lambdas and I felt a thigh is all on everybody's minds. And so I just wanted to get some actual news and information out there without left or right-wing spin, for that matter. So that should be coming up. This section here is going to be a little dry, but I wanted to get it out there. I was listening to one of my favorite podcasts, and I thought the information was so good that I needed to share on my podcast as well too. It was a piece written by Michael Anton talking about Democrat tactics, and the thing is about like Democrat tactics, and I've noticed that the right, thankfully I would say, has started to adopt these tactics. A lot of them come from what's called Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals, and Saul Alinsky, and I'm sure anybody that listens to my podcast knows who he is, but just in case, like early 20th century Marxist radical and community organizer, funny enough, created these rules for liberals because it was very obvious to any Marxist paying attention that a military takeover of the United States was not going to happen. So they deducted this amazing plan to just culturally, slowly, subtly infiltrate the United States and everything that we consume, media, education, yada, yada, yada. And Saul Alinsky created these tactics called Rules for Radicals. And once you see these tactics, you can't unsee them. I've tried talking to some of my lefty friends about it, and they don't get it, and they don't see it. And I'm like, look at what they do, look at what they say. They all do look, act the same way. Yes, they have their little fringe radicals that are kind of like foot soldiers, but the really dangerous ones are wearing very nice suits, and they are handsome and beautiful. And they are saying all of the right things. They know exactly what shade to wear for this TV station. They know all of the right flowery words to say. They have all the focus group tested words called up at a moment's notice. It's not by accident that you look at these people and you go, oh, they're nice. And I can't tell you how many times I've heard it out of a liberal's mouth, but they're so nice. But no, they're so nice, or at least they're reasonable, you know, and yada yada. It's a tactic. It's right out of Saul Alinsky's Rules for Radicals. Anyway, I went off on a rabbit trail about Saul Alinsky. This guy, Michael Anton, did a piece, and it was promoted on another podcast, and I thought I would share it because it was just super interesting to me. And he was talking about Democrat tactics, and he had a handful of them. Tactic number one was the celebration paradox. Basically, in a nutshell, a Republican can say ABC and get deplatformed for it. A Democrat can say ABC and he will get celebrated for it. That's all done through the media. A good example of that is CRT, like Republicans going, they're trying to push this CRT, critical race theory, and indoctrinate our kids. And Democrats going, we are going to be indoctrinating your kids. You know, your kids need this. And the Republicans get kicked off of social media for it. The Democrats get celebrated. That's just a quick example of that. Tactic number 2, the law of unmerited possibilities. Example is the Republicans, the merits of what happened to them, the impossible things that Democrats said would never happen. They tell the Republicans, "Oh, that's impossible. That's impossible. That's not going to happen. We're not doing that. We're not going to do that." And then they do it. And then when they do it, it's celebrated. It's like passing a bill that, transgenders just want to, use the bathroom. But next they're going to be coming for your kids. That's impossible. We're not coming for your kids. And then flash forward years later, culturally, they're coming for your kids. Not only are they coming for your kids, it's 50-year-old men in tutus reading books to your children in the library and being celebrated for it. The celebration. Unmerited possibilities. That can't happen. That's not going to happen. Not to get into vaccines on this episode, but vaccine passports, mandated vaccine IDs, that's not going to happen. That's impossible. We would never talk about that. Now they're talking about it. Russian collusion was another good one about this, the classic Russian collusion. Oh, Donald Trump wasn't spied on. You guys are crazy. ... Well, yes, he was spied on, but it was for a good reason, because he was a Russian asset. Okay, he's not a Russian asset, but you should have let us investigate him if we thought he was a Russian asset. Goalpost moving, that's another tactic. Let's see. Another thing, it's plenty of examples of this, but, Fauci saying, we are not doing gain-of-function research at the Wuhan lab. Okay. We have all of this evidence showing that you're doing gain-of-function at the Wuhan lab. I said we're not doing coronavirus gain-of-function at the Wuhan lab, and you're all liars, especially you, Senator. Okay, well, that's not what I asked you. I just asked you, are you doing gain-of-function at the lab? We are not doing gain of function, and then they get caught. Okay, well, we are doing gain of function, and it's a good thing. So anyway, unmerited possibilities, celebration, parallax. What's the other one? The law of salutary contradiction. Dovetails nicely into the example, Bub, that I just gave. The thing that you conservative nutbags are saying is happening is not happening. But it's good that it's happening. I'm not kidding. Want another example of this? Very recent example. Tucker Carlson isn't being spied on. But if he is being spied on, it's because he's trying to get an interview with Putin, so it's a good thing. So it's not happening, but it's a good thing that it's happening. They are masters of this one, the salutary contradiction. It's not happening, but it's a good thing if it is happening. Of course, the Dr. Fauci example again, but we're not funding this, but if we did, it would be fine. What was the other one? The Smales exhortation. This one you'd have to be kind of older to get the title. Smales is referring to Judge Smales from the classic movie Caddyshack. And what he was famous for saying in that movie was, "You'll get nothing and like it." It's pretty much what the Dems say in this. You'll get nothing and like it. What this boils down to is Democrats saying democracy is great unless we lose, then it's horrible. In other words, we think everybody should vote, everybody should have a voice, unless you're going to vote Republican. That's horrible. Believe it or not, most Americans don't want unfettered immigration, illegal or otherwise, including Hispanic people. Pew Research and poll after poll of just nonpartisan polls have shown this. But the Democrats say you get nothing and like it. So they only like democracy if it's something that they want. Other than that, the people shouldn't have a voice. And like it's been said multiple times by multiple podcasts on multiple people, if illegal immigrants voted Republican, you would see that southern border wall from space. It would be visible from space. Anyway, I'm dovetailing again and going off on rabbit trails, but good Lord, if people snuck over here and they voted Republican, look how the push to not really let Cuba in and to take a hard stance on Cuba is. Because as soon as Cuba escapes communism, they come over here, and if they get the chance to vote eventually, they're going to vote Republican. It's why mail-in ballots were a big deal to Democrats in the mid to late 2000s, because mail-in ballots were mostly absentee, and it was military and, older people voting Republican. So then they would tell you, oh yeah, it's rife with fraud. And there's clip after clip of these disingenuous Democrat politicians going, oh no, we can't have any kind of mail-in balloting. But then once they figured out the system, okay, we have 2020, another rabbit trail. What's the other one? I'm going through Anton's laws here for Democrats. The lie-back imperative. The lie-back imperative. This is where the left takes advantage of useful idiots on the right side. David French, the crying Adam Kinzinger, Liz Cheney. The useful idiots on the right that they can get recruited to toe the line and tell the constituents that what's happening isn't really happening, and they're crazy for thinking that. The Democrats are masters at this, because what they'll do is they'll find a middle of the road Republican, or a Republican light, basically a Democrat, and get them to come over to their side or speak their lines. Mitt Romney is a classic one about this. Liz Cheney, the whole January 6th, Insurrection Council, they went out and found a couple of Republicans that they knew would toe the line, and then they get to say, come on guys, say it with me, even Republicans are saying that this is bad, blah 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 blah. Yeah, so that's the lie back imperative. I thought that one was really good. The last one is called the enmity counterattack or accusation. What that means is the Democrats declare you their enemy. You call them out for saying such things, and then they call you divisive. The left says something violent, and you respond, maybe not even with violence, but maybe with violent words, and the left shrinks back and points at you and calls you violent. See how it works? Unwinnable situation. It's an Alinksy tactic. Accuse your enemies of that which you were guilty. Side note: I used to go to this church, and I used to play in a band at this church. I was a guitar player, and it was like a word of faith, charismatic type church. You name a Protestant genre, I've played at their church. And the guy that was directing the band, if you had any kind of moment where you were less than Christ-like, he would call it fleshing out. In other words, acting in your flesh. Oh, you're fleshing out. So what this band director would do would be pretty much self-fulfilled prophecies. He would use this tactic. So he would be like, you'd be having a normal practice, and I don't know, maybe you miss a note or something, and he would be like, Ronald, what are you doing? I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm not having a good time today or something. He'd be like, Ronald, don't flesh out. And then you all of a sudden would be defensive, and you'd be like, well no, I'm not fleshing out. And then he would go, ooh, you're fleshing out. See how that worked? It's antagonizing, and it's a tactic. So you say the Republicans are violent. The Republicans go, I'm not violent, and they go, ooh, man, how divisive. Yeah, classic Alinksy tactic. He's calling it the lie back imperative, but it's an old Alinksy tactic. And then it makes deserved punishment. Because of some kind of, whatever grievance that you have done against the left. But anyway, another thing I wanted to talk about really quick is the conservative civil war that's happening. It's still going on. And I've seen people like, go after porn stars that are conservative. I've had a couple of, not even dust-ups, just mild conversations with like people on my side that I trust. And I get it. As far as like the porn star stuff goes, I don't care. I honestly don't care. That's where I'm like super libertarian about it. Not because I'm some kind of porn addict or anything. I'm like, dude, if you want to make money and people are paying for it, then we got to fix the problem somewhere else. It's always like, oh, well, if we would stop it or make it illegal. Yeah, because that works so well with everything else that you try to make illegal. So it's just kind of a dumb argument. I did not think it was a good look for like a porn star being turned away at a Turning Point USA conference, especially, well, supposedly, since they invited her to it, but I think she made like too big of a deal on it on social media. Hey, look how accepting everybody is. And then they booed her. So this kind of goes back to Bongino's trench warfare rule. If you are fighting a war and you are in the trenches with these guys, I don't care if the guy next to me is a porn star or not. Yeah, but Ronald, our cause isn't pure. No, our cause is pure. We're fighting for like freedom and liberty and the salvation of Western civilization. If you think porn should or should not be a part of that, of course we can have that discussion. Can we have that discussion after bullets stop whizzing by our heads? Because that's what's happening right now. We are in the trenches. We are engaged in trench warfare. And if people do not pass what we think are standards for conservatism, we go, oh, well, sorry, you can't be in the club. You can't fire this gun at my enemy. And that just does not make sense. And it's a problem the right has always had, because all of us do think critically and have a billion different opinions on a billion different things. It's really hard for us to come together. And I just don't see that being a winnable situation. I had other stuff to get to, but I'm probably just going to cut it short, and that will do it for this episode of Publitarian Podcast. If you want to reach out to me, you can. I'm publitarian@protonmail.com. I'm on all of the social medias. You can find me on any of the social medias. Literally pick one, and I'm on there. Just look for my name, Publitarian. Again, thank you for listening to this edition of Publitarian Podcast, and I'll see you guys on the next one. You've been listening to Publitarian Podcast, copyright 2021.